Welcome back to the Speaking and Communicating podcast. I am your host, Roberta. And if you are interested in improving your communication skills, developing yourself as a leader, and overall self-improvement, this is the podcast for you. Today, we are very privileged to be joined by Betsy Kauffman. She is a TED speaker, an organizational agility consultant, and leadership coach. And before we go any further, please help me welcome Betsy. Hi, Betsy.
Hi, Roberta. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Glad to have you here. So first of all, let's discuss your TED Talk.
Yes. Yeah, TED Talk has definitely been a whirlwind of excitement. It actually launched back in January onto the main stage, January of 2021. And it's funny because it came about, as you know, I'm a leadership coach, and I coach quite a bit of just all kinds of different companies and leaders. And I was having several one-on-one conversations. And the theme that kept coming up was like, I really wish I could just say this out loud. I really wish I could let it be known. And it was just a topic that was happening in every single session that I was having with a group of leaders. And so I'm like, well, what's stopping you? What's stopping you from having these conversations and putting, saying what's going on in the organization? And, there's always a number of things. And so when I submitted it, it was just sitting there top of mind. I had one day left in the deadline to get it in. And I'm like, I'm going to submit this topic because it really is something that's near and dear to me, of how to have the honest conversations at work. And so that's where it started. And it's 4 tips on how to kickstart those honest conversations. And I think, it's a topic that never goes out of style, because we're consistently having that challenge as to how to really be able to speak up and how to be able to talk about what's happening in the company, in the room, in the team, in the organization. Because way too many times we actually are having those really important conversations outside, right? We reach out to a peer, either virtually, or if we're back in the office, when we're sitting at a lunch break, or we're somewhere, in the office, but we're not having them where they need to be had, which is front and center in front of the entire organization. So that's how it came about.
Right.
And there's 4 tips to it, and we can get into those.
Okay.
Well.
And before we do, I'm looking forward to hearing those. What is it that you think makes us, have we as a culture become a little bit too sensitive? Everybody gets offended. Is that the reason you'd rather talk to a peer because it's safe?
Yeah, I think as we get older, we probably end up, or as we get more and more into workspaces, people probably stop us from saying things out loud, right? We worry that it's going to have a negative impact on either our job performance or on our promotion performance, or you may be working in a place that's not safe to have those type of conversations because leaders don't want to hear what's going on, right? So I think it's a factor of all of those. And it really becomes, problematic, because as leaders, they want to know what's going on. They're actually, they're sitting at a different altitude and they're getting a lot of things coming at them. And so there's something that's coming up that's not being addressed. They actually do want to know about it. Now, they may not respond the way that we'd like them to. And that's part of the other side of it, is how do we coach leaders to be receptive to those types of conversations. But they need to know when things aren't going to go well before they actually don't go well. And that's really the part of it that I think as leaders and as organizations, we need to start to create that culture that praises those conversations and allows those conversations to happen, and not, tamper them down, and actually encourage individuals and reward them for bringing up the things that are going on in the organization.
Mm-hmm. Preventive rather than damage control after the damage is done. Much better.
Yeah, we want to do fire prevention instead of firefighting, right?
That's right.
In
my corporate career, which started in the 90s, I've experienced both sides. I've experienced leaders who basically thought they didn't have time to have these, what they call mushy stuff conversations, because we have deadlines and projects to complete. Right. And then I would have those who, I remember the one small company I worked for, my CEO used to appreciate you coming up with a new idea so much, even if it's not similar to what he had in mind, because to him, the bigger picture is the client is going to benefit, and you'll get an even bigger bonus when the client pays us because you came up with part of this brilliant idea.
Absolutely. And Roberta, I mean, think about it now. Which company would you rather work for? Even today, right? Forget the like even today.
Exactly. The one that encourages me to say, I hear you, boss, but you know what? I have a thought on this too. And he'd
Right.
actually welcome it if he
Yeah.
thinks it's also going to benefit. Like I said, to him, it wasn't about his ego, but more the bigger scale, the what's going to make us look good as a company.
Right. Right. Yeah. And the thing is this, employees are actually closer to the problems that we're trying to solve and understanding a little bit better what our customers want, what products is our services or whatever we do as a company. You'd be really surprised what kind of amazing and creative and innovative ideas will come out from just asking your employees, because they're seeing what's going on. They're actually closer to
Right.
creating whatever it is that you do as an organization. So yeah,
So be open to hearing of their experiences on the ground because they are on the ground.
absolutely. Yep. Yep.
So let's talk about the 4 tips from your talk.
Yeah, sure. So the first tip is confidence, right? So that's where you have to start at the very beginning. You've got to actually have the confidence to want to speak up and to want to, say what's going on, to be able to give ideas, to be able to say, hey, this project maybe isn't going to make the deadlines, or it's not on track for what we thought. Or it's not going to meet our customer revenue goals because we're not building it the right way, whatever it is, right? And so I always find that's usually the hardest part of it, is finding that confidence and that courage to say, okay, I'm going to say something. Now let me say it in a room of my peers or a room of my leaders, because what I have to say is important. So number one, foundational, is always the confidence and the courage to speak up. And as you know, that is usually the one thing that potentially holds us back from speaking up, is because we don't want to put ourselves out there, because we may get, like I said, where the repercussions potentially could be damaging, but I actually don't think it is. It's about, the other 3 tips will help you with that. So the second tip is to understand what is your intent behind speaking up. So, we all, the story of Chicken Little, right? We don't want to speak up to speak up. It's like you have to have a good positive intent. So by me saying what's going on, the intent is that I actually want to inform the leaders, and I want to do something better so that we don't go down this path. Right. So make sure you come with it you understand your intent for speaking up, and you're not one of those folks that just tend to chatter and the sky is falling and we can't.
And I've experienced so in my lifetime, yes.
And that's the other problem, is that we end up starting to tune those types of folks out, right? Because every time, if they're the folks that are just like coming up and they just want to keep throwing like the grenades and the bad things that are happening out there, we tend to tune them out, and their voices get dampened, because they're like, oh, okay, here they go again. We're not going to say that. So, make sure you have a really good, solid intent of what you want to say and what it's going to do to move the conversation forward. And then the third thing is, don't sugarcoat it, right? So understand how to deliver the message very directly with facts and not emotion, right? So when we can state factually what is happening or what we see is going to happen, and we don't spend a lot of time kind of beating around the bush, that becomes, that's actually the critical piece of it, because how it gets delivered is how it's going to be received. Right. And so that takes sometimes practice to say, okay, I've got to make sure that when I deliver information that is very open and honest and may not be the most, popular, positive thing to be in the room, I deliver it with a really clear, non-emotional, factual, fact-based message. And I'm succinct with it. Right. So, I hate to say this, but a lot of times as women, we tend to speak around it and speak a lot, and, we don't stop. So
would that be the reason sometimes people tune out as well?
Yeah, exactly. Because we just go on and on and on, and we aren't like really say, okay, what's the point? Hey, we're not going to make this project deadline, and this is why. Boom, 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 done. Right. So, usually it's nice to have accountability partner or a mentor. So if you know that you struggle with being able to deliver messages very succinctly and factually, it's always great to practice. I know sometimes if I have to deliver some news that's not going to be, well received, I will practice out loud, even if I'm by myself, right? In front of a mirror, because when I hear my voice and I hear myself saying it out loud, it actually, one, gives me the confidence, and I can kind of get that verbiage down and figure out what it is that I really want to say and how am I going to deliver that message. Or if you've got a peer or someone that you really respect, hey, I want to practice with you. Let me know how this lands with you when I deliver the message. So there's little, I guess, micro tips within the 4 tips here.
Right. Yeah. Practicing beforehand.
Yeah. And then the 4th tip is come with a resolution, or, or at least have the openness to say, okay, we have to have a resolution to this. So it's one thing to actually have the honest conversation and put it out there and not sugarcoat it and have intent, but then just don't leave it there, right? Like a mic drop moment to say, boom, okay, now I'm going to leave the room. Here's everything that's happening. We're not going to deliver. I'm out. And I've seen that happen all the time, right? That's typical. So come with some sort of a resolution, or come with we need to get to a resolution. Here are some ideas I have, even if they're not the best, most grandiose ideas, at least, have that type of mindset to say we have to resolve it, because nobody really wants anybody's going to come in, like I said, like a Chicken Little, the sky is falling. Okay, great. Well, then what do we want to do about it? Right. So leaders
be solution driven.
They want solutions. They want you to come with ideas. They want you to come with ways that we can go about it. And then, that actually just starts to feed off of each other. So if you've got some ideas, and they may not be the ones that land at the end of the day, at least it changes the conversation to being doom and gloom and, oh my goodness, what's happening here, to okay, now how do we deal with this? And as a team, what's the best way to come about seeking that resolution? So those are the 4 tips. And, over time, they get easier as you master them and as you kind of keep them in mind and you practice them. But they're just so critical in order to really keep that conversation flowing at work and to create better workplaces, right? Where you can feel able to open and have the conversations.
Mm-hmm. Because you are open with your team, you create a better relationship, and therefore, as you say, better workplaces.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we want to do. I mean, we spend so much time at work, right?
Yes.
I mean, we spent a lot of time at home at work. Unless you're back to work in an office, we need to enjoy what we do every day. We need to not dread having those conversations. And, I don't know about you, but I work with a lot of different organizations, and I'm constantly getting the side, pings and Slacks and team chats and all of that. Oh my gosh, did you hear that? Oh my, and so it's how do we kind of minimize some of that and actually bring that forward out into the
because
open?
They didn't bring it out during the incident.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it happens all the time.
So they don't feel safe bringing it up. So they'd rather just go behind and say, hey, Betsy, this is the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. It happens. Yeah. And I think, that's the experience a lot of folks have at work, right? So now that we're no longer, majority of us are still not back in the office. We used to do that at cubicles, or when we were going to lunch, or we were doing something, or right after the meeting or right before the meeting. Now we're doing it via, electronic communication channels, which then become distracting, because if you're in a meeting and people are having these side conversations via all the new awesome tools that are out there, that's what's happening. We're not actually staying present and focused in that session during those conversations as well.
Right. Which is then very counterproductive.
Exactly. It would be, I almost wonder if there's a study that we could do to say, okay, in a meeting, how many chats are sent while that meeting is going on about the meeting, right? There's
not the actual issue being handled.
Right. Yes. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't agree with that, or I don't know what's happening here. Absolutely. Yeah, I bet you it'd be a really, really phenomenal study if we could, dial into Zoom stats or
get
something.
The data on Zoom. That's right.
Yeah.
So what is it that leaders can do in order to create, like you said, a safe working environment for people to express their concerns without waiting to have a private conversation with you afterwards?
Yeah. It really comes down to, one, as a leader, how do you respond when somebody delivers that type of news? We talked about that a little bit, but it is critical that you create an environment and a safe space to allow folks to speak up. And so, it could be okay, I want to hear what's going on. There's some fun things that we've done before. We call them almost evil genius workshops or things like that, or an evil genius time. Okay, talk to me about all the things that are concerning you at this time. What could possibly go wrong? Or what are we aware of that's going to go wrong, right? And so we kind of create that setting to say, we want to hear it and be open to it. So, you might hear something that doesn't land well, right? And you want to deal with it, but your response as a leader is going to really determine how that conversation goes and if they feel safe to continue to bring it up. So I think you need to, one, be open to those types of conversations. And if you've got somebody in the room with you that you trust, get feedback from them to say, okay, did I handle that well? Was I open to that? So it's good to get that kind of feedback as well as a leader, because that will help you to only, no, you actually kind of shut them down. You didn't want to hear it. Like that self-awareness is really critical for everyone, and especially for leaders, because of the impact they have on the organization, how they work with different people.
Right. Because they do less of the work, the technical work, and more the managing of people.
They do. And how you respond to them people will either soar, right, and be very open and will love, to work for you, or they're going to shut down and they're not going to want to be a part of the conversation. So, that's a really critical role for a leader, is to figure out what type of environment and communication are you allowing within a group setting, as well as within a one-on-one setting.
Uh-huh. Is this something during a performance management review? Is this something you can potentially bring up if you feel like during the course of your work there, you didn't have a chance maybe, or is that a really bad time? Because sometimes they do ask you, besides the job, they do ask you and say, so especially if it's your first one and you've been here 6 months, and say, so Roberta, what do you think? How has it been so far since you joined our company? Can I say those things, or is that a bad time because I want a promotion and a raise?
I think you can absolutely say those things, right? You need to speak up, because we're in a really interesting time anyway with the whole Great Resignation and things. I mean, there's a lot of great jobs out there. And so if your employees aren't happy, you should probably know about that, because you might lose them, right? It costs a lot of money to bring on an employee, to train them, to onboard them, and to invest in them. And the funny thing is, I think I was reading something, or somebody did a poll out on LinkedIn recently. Performance management, when you're actually having that review, it's probably already, like, all the decisions have already been made, regarding like your raise and your bonus and everything like that. So at that point, it's probably just a review, right? So I actually wouldn't be, I would be honest about how's it going, where things, and it is about the delivery again. So how do you deliver where there's opportunities for the leader to improve, or for, the workplace to improve? So, you don't want to come across as, coming down on them, but like, oh, I love to be able to speak up more in meetings, and I don't feel like I have a voice, right? Right there is like a great way to say it, right? Yeah. And then you could talk, okay, well then how do we do that? Right. So, you kind of leave that open-ended for the leader to help you with that. But that then brings the awareness to the leader to say, oh, thank you. And I have a feeling that in the next meeting, they'll probably call on you to say, well, what do you think, Roberta? What do you think, Betsy? Right. And, that's an awareness that they probably weren't even aware of what was going on, or how you were feeling during that time.
Until I brought it up. Yeah.
They have so much going on. I mean, leaders, if you think about it, they have so much going on. Not only do they have their direct reports that they have to work with, they also have peers. They may have business partners or external customers or clients. They've got leaders coming down on them.
Board of directors.
A million things that they're dealing with. So they aren't as tuned into every little thing that's going on with every person. And so when you bring it up, it's going to help them to be like, okay, I need to be more aware of this situation and how to help them when we get into like a group conversation or whatever it is that they want to bring up as an employee.
Mm-hmm. Sounds to me, with all that's going on, they might suffer from burnout. What are some of the things that you can suggest in order for them to deal with burnout? Because there's just a lot that they have to handle.
Yeah, so that's been a really, really critical topic that has come up quite a bit lately in a lot of the podcasts and the organizations that I work with. It's funny, I work with, I was talking about 2 or 3 different senior female leaders, different organizations, just having conversation. And they're like, I have no time to think. I can't think. I'm so busy. I get up at 7:30 in the morning, I go to 5:30, and then I'm done. And I've got everything coming at me. So as a leader, you do control your schedule, whether you think you do or you don't, you do, right? And so that needs to be a mindset shift as to, okay, how do I configure my schedule and control my schedule so I do have time to balance out all the things that are going on, right? You have to put blocks in your schedule that are non-negotiable times for yourself in order to either think or get up and, go for a walk, or if we're at home, grab lunch, right? So we all control our schedules as individuals and as humans, right? And so you've got to
take everything that's on the table.
Yeah. You need to, because if you don't, what's going to happen, right? You're going to be burnt out. You're going to be tired. You're not going to be a great leader. You're not going to be great for your direct reports or for your company. So the best folks that are actually probably bringing their whole self to the table are actually bringing a balanced perspective and a balanced life in order to achieve that. When you go on vacation, right? So as a leader,
have you heard of those people who spend 5 years not taking a vacation because they're so busy?
Or they're on it and they're on calls all day, or they're responding to emails, or that, this is the thing. If you as a leader, you probably tell your team members, okay, go on vacation, don't check in, you're good, I want you to go on vacation. But if you don't mimic that same behavior, then one, that's obviously not a great culture, as well as, you're going to be burnt out, right? And your employees are not going to feel like they can do that, because they're like, well, she goes on vacation, but she doesn't really go on vacation. So is that expectation really in place that I can take this time off and go off the grid for a week or two or whatever? Or am I going to be expected to keep up with what's going on, that's critical?
Even while I'm in the Maldives.
Yeah. Yeah, which is terrible. I'd rather be in the Maldives enjoying it, right? I mean, they're vacations for a reason. We all need brain breaks.
Yes.
And we need time to decompress.
Mm-hmm.
So again,
I was there.
Yeah. So to encourage, live, preach, do what you preach, and make sure that you're actually like taking the breaks, taking vacation, taking time during the day. The other thing is, and I know this might not be the most popular thing, is if you meet with all of your people every single week, one-on-one, kind of question yourself, because at some point you may not need to do that, right? Because we want our team members to be able to be autonomous and self-starters and forward thinking. And so if they're always needing to meet with you, to keep up with you, or to ask, yeah, that's going to be a problem. So figure out, what is that, right? Is it every other week that I meet with my directs? Is it, what is it that you really need to meet with them for? And how do you let go a little bit, right? And allow your employees to make decisions, and to make decisions on what they do and what we're from a work perspective. So,
actually, we were discussing the difference between a boss and a leader. And one of the characteristics is the boss micromanages.
Yes.
The leader shows their people direction, and then they take the initiative to get themselves there. Well, along the way, he may help, but you don't have to nitpick on everything. If those are the kind of people you hire, maybe it's time to do something different.
Well, then they stop thinking, right? And you don't want that. We don't want people to stop thinking. We want people to think and make decisions. And so what we started with in the beginning of the podcast, and be able to say, okay, hey, here's a decision. I don't, here's an idea. I want to speak up, because again, you want to create this culture where people start to think, and they can drive decisions, and they can drive discussions on their own. And you're not the pivotal linchpin in it all, right? I think, if you don't have if you can't go on vacation, or if something falls apart because you leave, then you haven't actually created the right team of people around you in order to allow you to have that time off as well. So kind of look back and say, okay, if I walk away for a week, for a day, is the world going to fall apart? And if it is, then there's some work that needs to get done, right? You need to look at
something in the system that's not plugged in. Yeah.
It's usually the leader that needs that like internal look and self-awareness to say, okay, what do I need to put in place? Who do I need to continue to groom and grow so that I'm not the linchpin and the pivotal person in all of this? And that's how you avoid burnout too, because then if you feel like you've got to be in the middle of everything, you're never going to get to be able to step away or grow into your next role, because you've now put a place that you can't actually move and go in a new direction.
I think it's back to what we were talking about earlier, the ego sometimes. I know that some people feed off being indispensable at work. If I'm not here, this particular section is not going to move. You want to feel like they feel like it's their security point, so to speak. If when you are not there, that in that aspect, whatever you're responsible for, we're going to suffer until Betsy comes back. You want to feel like you have a hold on us, and then so the company is never going to let you go. Right. No matter what, because you feel like that's how you secured your spot. I don't know if have you seen that at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, where they, I'm the most important person. And if I leave, they'll never survive without me. Well, I hate to tell you, they will. They may have a little, if you do put yourself in that role and you think that is your mindset, and for some reason you do leave, guess what? They will eventually replace you, depending on, it may be a little bit of a dip or something.
Yeah.
However, everybody can be replaced. And I hate to say that. And, so that's not a growth mindset, right? So a growth mindset is about being open, being able to try new things, allowing yourself to explore other things and not being that linchpin, right? Because if you just want to stay in your role, you're never going to grow into something else or grow into something new. And we want to give other people opportunities too. So your goal should be like, okay, how do I replace myself so that I can move into something else within the company and I can continue to have opportunities for my team to move into my role or to get some of my responsibilities. That's the mindset that we should be having as leaders.
Which benefits you a lot more than thinking that in order for me to secure this position, I must always be the only one who knows how to operate the system.
Right. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I don't want to deal with that all day long. I want to be exposed to all kinds of new and different things. And, I don't want to be dealing with.
And it makes your resume look so good when you can do so much.
It does. It's fantastic. Yeah. And, then that opens new doors for you too, right? Because then you are gaining new skills. And, you may not stay at the company for the next 20 years. You may say, oh, wow, I've got all these great skills. Let me go put them somewhere else. Or let me create something new, a new role within the company that I can actually take everything and combine it and go from that place forward. So,
yes. And the one thing about having different skills, you even know how the business is run from different angles. Wouldn't that then transition you one day if you decide to open your own business? You'll know the different aspects that go into making it successful.
Absolutely. Yep. And you can be a consultant and, do all those great things where you can say, okay, I've been exposed to this area and this area and this area. Let me come in and help you and figure out, what I can do there. So many opportunities could exist for you for sure.
Right. Just one last thing that I'm curious about, the word agility coach. Why did you choose to call yourself an agility coach?
So it's funny, my background has always been in like project management and program management and software technology. And there's a movement that formally started back in 2001. It's the agile ways of working. And as I was working in organizations and helping teams to bring agile to those companies, I've realized that it's not about bringing the frameworks and the methods and the processes. It's about bringing what I call little a agility. And how do we as leaders and teams and organizations become nimble, right? How do we start to think about, leaning out our processes and being lean in how we are thinking and quick in making decisions? So I like to actually take a bigger view and say, how do we bring agility to the organizations as opposed to agile, which is what has been historically the mindset, right? Which is let's make a framework, let's apply it onto something and go. Every organization is different. Every team is different. And so we have to take more of a pragmatic view. But at the end of the day, we all want to achieve agility as leaders, as teams, as organizations. So that's where it stems from. And, I find that when we can take that mindset, we're not so stuck in, it has to be done one single way.
Because we used to do it this way 10 years ago. So we're not going to change.
Right. Exactly.
Because everything just changes so fast nowadays. You can't afford to be stuck in the way things were done in the 90s before the internet.
Right. Yeah. And if you don't, customers and products and services, customers are very picky these days, right? And if you as an organization cannot respond quickly to your customer, you're going to start to lose out on market share. And we're seeing that, right? We see all these great things that are popping up, all these new companies and services. And, you need to be able to respond. You need to be able to put out new products and services quickly and fail and experiment. And that's the agility. So if you have an organization that is not able to do that, you're going to struggle, right? Now, the big companies will continue to probably stay there for a little while, maybe for, 20 more years, but there's always somebody that's sitting there trying to figure out how to do it, better and faster and really
more convenient.
Yeah.
Do you think that now, because of that, leaders, when looking to hire people, that's one of the characteristics they should look for in a candidate?
Yeah, I think, we're in a really interesting time again, because leaders now are looking for soft skills, I would say, more than what I call hard skills or the technical skills, right? And I did a talk at a college recently with a bunch of about 200 graduating seniors. And I said to them, I did a poll of different leaders and asking them, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? And they're like, passion, curiosity, creativity, ability to think, wanting to actually learn and grow. And every single leader said, I can teach them the technical or the hard skills, but I can't teach them the soft skills. I can't teach them to be flexible. I can't teach them how to communicate well. I can try to do that, but that's a little bit harder, right? I can't teach them about being adaptable, being a team player, right? So those are the skills that we're looking for now, as opposed to, I have all these certifications, I've done all these schools, and I've got all the, these degrees, right? Those are important for some, and for some jobs, you need to sometimes have a foundation.
Right, of
but
course.
It really is more the soft skills and being able to, be able to move and navigate an organization is way more today than the hard skills. However, the soft skills are probably the hard skills to master, right? They're much harder to master.
And also they're not part of the usual curriculum at university. No.
We're seeing kids don't communicate anymore. Like they
especially with texting. They don't even know how to
coherent
sentences.
Yeah, everything is like in emojis or in,
abbreviations and the acronyms.
And LOL. And I'm like, okay, at some point we have to communicate. Like we have to talk.
You know how many times I Google those acronyms because I have no idea, but sometimes what people say.
Me too. I'm like, what does this mean? But yeah,
it reminded me when I was early 2000, I was working for the brewery company back home, and our district manager, his famous phrase, I said, Roberta, for me, degrees not important. I don't care if you got high school. I want a great attitude. Great attitude. Great. So we used to call him great attitude. I want a great attitude, meaning you are teachable, you are adaptable. Whatever happens in the company today, you'll be able to be part of the team and find a solution, because you're not just stuck in being one thing.
Yeah,
this is only what I came here for.
That is true. I mean, if I'm interviewing somebody and I've got maybe they have the same background or experience, I'm gonna always pick the one that has a good attitude, wants to be there, and is excited. And maybe they don't have as much skills or as much background as the other candidate, but if they've got the willingness to want to be there, I'm going to pick them 9 times out of 10 over the other person.
Always, yeah.
I don't want to have to deal with somebody who doesn't have a good attitude, who doesn't want to learn new things, who doesn't want to be flexible or adaptable. And we're all now working a lot in teams, so you've got to learn how to be a team player. And you've got to be able to allow, teams to help you. And if you're not a team player, you're going to really struggle. And in many workplaces, not everything, but in many workplaces you will.
In most workplaces, because you're going to work with people and you're going to work with clients who are people as well.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
This has been such a wealth of information. Anyone who's listening is greatly going to benefit from this.
Thank you, Roberta. It's been so much fun. We had so many great topics that we just explored. So
yes, I wish we had more time, actually. Yes. But before you go, where can we find you so that we can have more information pertaining to this?
Absolutely. The best place is to go to my website, crossimpactcoaching.com. Or you can link in with me, Betsy Kauffman. And we are a leadership and organizational design firm. We do one-on-one leadership coaching. We do team development, which we love. And then we do organizational design, helping with organizations to become, agility, right? So,
yes.
Yeah.
Betsy Kauffman, the organizational agility coach, was with us today. And it's been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Roberta. I appreciate it.